Picture this. 3 entire Roman legions, nearly 20,000 of Rome's finest soldiers, marching through a dark Germanic forest. They believe they're returning home victorious. They have no idea they're walking into the most catastrophic military disaster in Roman history. In 3 days of unrelenting slaughter, Germanic warriors will annihilate forces that had conquered most of the known world. The Roman Empire will never recover these losses. The borders of Western civilization will be redrawn permanently. How did Rome's unstoppable war machine suffer such a complete and devastating defeat? The answer lies in the Teutoburg Forest, September 9th AD. And it begins with one man's betrayal. The year is 9 AD. For decades, Rome has been expanding relentlessly eastward across the Rhine River into Germania, a vast, unconquered wilderness inhabited by dozens of warlike tribes. Emperor Augustus envisions pushing Rome's frontier all the way to the Elbe River, effectively doubling the empire's northern territory. By this year, Roman commanders believe they've succeeded. Germanic tribes appear pacified. Roman roads cut through the forests. Taxes are being collected. The conquest seems complete. Leading this occupation is Publius Quinctilius Varus, governor of Germania. A politician, not a warrior, Varus made his reputation administering Syria, where he accumulated massive wealth through taxation. He's arrogant, aristocratic, and fundamentally misunderstands the people he's governing. To Varus, Germania is simply another province to exploit. He imposes Roman law harshly, demands heavy taxes, and treats tribal chieftains with contempt. He sees the Germanic people as barbarians, who should be grateful for Roman civilization. This cultural blindness will prove fatal. But Varus has an advisor he trusts completely. Arminius, a Germanic prince of the Cherusci tribe, approximately 25 years old. Arminius is everything Varus admires. He holds Roman citizenship, commands auxiliary Germanic troops, speaks perfect Latin, and understands Roman military tactics intimately. He was educated in Rome, served in the Roman army, and earned equestrian rank. Arminius appears to be the perfect example of successful Romanization. He dines with Varus. He counsels him on Germanic affairs. He's granted access to Roman military plans. What Varus doesn't know is that Arminius has been secretly organizing a massive coalition of Germanic tribes for months. The Cherusci, Marsi, Chatti, Bructeri, Chauci, and Sicambri, tribes that have warred against each other for generations, are united under Arminius's leadership with one purpose: to drive Rome out of Germania forever. It's an intelligence operation of stunning sophistication. Arminius has maintained his cover perfectly while coordinating warriors across hundreds of square miles of territory. In early September 9th AD, Varus commands 3 full legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, plus 6 auxiliary cohorts and 3 cavalry squadrons. Approximately 15,000 legionaries and 5,000 auxiliaries, along with thousands of camp followers, servants, women, and children. The column stretches for miles. They're marching from their summer camp on the Weser River back to their winter quarters on the Rhine. It should be a routine movement through pacified territory. Then Arminius brings Varus news of a rebellion. A minor uprising by a distant tribe, he explains. Nothing serious, but it requires attention. Arminius suggests an alternate route. Not the open Roman roads, but a shortcut through the Teutoburg Forest. It'll save time, he promises. They can suppress the rebellion and reach winter quarters before the weather turns. Varus, trusting his Germanic friend completely, orders the route change. Other Roman officers, including Segestes, a Germanic noble loyal to Rome, warn Varus that Arminius is planning treachery. Varus dismisses these warnings as tribal jealousies. He cannot imagine that his trusted advisor would betray Rome. It's the last mistake he'll ever make. The Roman force entering the Teutoburg Forest is formidable on paper. 3 legions represent Rome's military perfection. Heavy infantry trained to fight in organized formations, equipped with advanced armor, short swords, heavy javelins, and large rectangular shields. Each legion contains approximately 5,000 men divided into cohorts and centuries with clear command structures. Supporting them are auxiliary troops, primarily Germanic allies, plus cavalry units. In open terrain against conventional enemies, this force is nearly unstoppable. But the Teutoburg Forest is not open terrain. It's a nightmare of dense woods, narrow paths, treacherous bogs, and steep ravines. The forest floor is muddy from recent autumn rains. Visibility extends perhaps 20 yards before being swallowed by trees. The Roman column, normally able to deploy into battle formation within minutes, is strung out over 9 miles of narrow forest trails. Legionaries march in loose order, armor and weapons packed for travel. The baggage train, Hundreds of wagons carrying supplies, equipment, siege engines, and personal belongings moves between units. Camp followers walk alongside soldiers. It's a migration, not a military formation. Arminius has chosen this killing ground with precision. He knows Roman tactics intimately. He understands that legionaries are vulnerable when they cannot form their disciplined ranks. He studied how Roman forces deploy, how they build fortified camps each night, how their command structure functions. And he knows this particular stretch of forest, the Calcrease region near modern Osnabrück, where the trail narrows between a large hill and an impassable bog, creating a natural death trap. The Germanic coalition waiting in these forests numbers approximately 20 to 25,000 warriors. These are not the undisciplined barbarians Roman propaganda depicts. They're experienced fighters who've raided Roman territories for years. Many have served in Roman auxiliary units and understand Roman tactics. They're armed with spears, axes, swords, and shields. Most importantly, they're fighting on home terrain with complete tactical knowledge and overwhelming motivation. This is their homeland being defended. Arminius' strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. He won't engage in pitched battle where Roman discipline could prevail. Instead, he'll use guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run attacks from the forest, striking the vulnerable column repeatedly, denying Romans the ability to form proper battle lines, wearing them down through exhaustion and terror. The Germanic warriors have cleared the Roman trail in places and blocked it with earthworks and felled trees in others, creating deliberate choke points. They've built a concealed wooden rampart along the hillside, overlooking the narrowest section of trail, a fortification from which they can rain projectiles down onto trapped legionaries. As Varus's column enters the forest on September 9th AD, the skies darken. Rain begins falling, turning the trails into mud. Arminius, still playing his role, rides with the Roman command. At some point during the first day, sources don't record the exact moment, he excuses himself, claiming he needs to gather allied Germanic reinforcements from nearby villages. Varus grants permission. Arminius rides ahead with his Germanic auxiliaries, and then he disappears into the forest. Within hours, the auxiliary troops under his command vanish with him. Only then, far too late, does Varus begin to understand. The rebellion report was false. The route was deliberately chosen. His trusted advisor has been an enemy agent all along. And somewhere in these dark woods, an army is waiting. The attacks begin without warning during the afternoon of the first day. Germanic warriors emerge from the forest like ghosts, hurling javelins and spears into the strung-out Roman column, then vanishing back into the trees before legionaries can respond. The Romans attempt to form defensive positions, but the terrain makes it impossible. Units become separated. The baggage train slows everything to a crawl. Panic spreads among the camp followers. Centurions scream orders that get lost in the chaos and storm. The rain intensifies, turning bowstrings useless and making footing treacherous. Varus attempts to establish order. He commands his forces to continue marching. Stopping in the forest means death. They must reach open ground. But there is no open ground. Every clearing they approach has been blocked with felled trees and earthwork barriers. The trail they're following has been deliberately sabotaged. Legionaries have to clear obstacles while under constant missile attack from warriors they can barely see. Germanic fighters know every path, every ravine, every hiding spot. They strike from unexpected angles, targeting officers and standard bearers to sow confusion, then melt back into the undergrowth. By nightfall of the first day, the Roman force has suffered hundreds of casualties and traveled perhaps 6 miles. Varus orders the construction of a fortified marching camp, standard Roman procedure. Exhausted soldiers dig ditches and raise earthen ramparts despite the rain and darkness, creating a defensive perimeter. Inside, the wounded cry out for medical attention. Officers attempt to assess losses. Morale is collapsing. Many Germanic auxiliary troops have deserted, joining the attackers or simply fleeing. The legionaries, who've conquered Gauls, Germans, Britons, and countless other peoples, are beginning to realize they might not survive this. Throughout the night, Germanic warriors surround the camp. They don't attack directly. The Roman fortifications are still formidable. Instead, they call out in Latin, taunting the trapped legionaries. Some shout promises of mercy for those who surrender. Others scream war cries. The psychological warfare is devastatingly effective. Soldiers who've never experienced defeat are now contemplating their deaths. Dawn of the second day brings no relief. The column breaks camp and resumes marching. Varus is trying to reach the Rhine approximately 60 miles west. But the Germanic attacks intensify. Warriors now assault the column in larger groups, sometimes hundreds at once, overwhelming isolated units before reinforcements can arrive. The Romans fight desperately, but their tactical advantages mean nothing here. Their heavy armor, designed for formation combat, now exhausts them in the mud. Their short gladieswords, perfect for close-quarter stabbing in organized ranks, are less effective than Germanic spears in the broken terrain. Their shields become waterlogged and heavy. The baggage train has become a deadly liability. Wagons overturn in the mud. Civilians scatter into the forest where Germanic warriors hunt them down. Soldiers who try to defend the baggage are cut off and annihilated. Varus makes the agonizing decision to abandon most of the supplies. Legionaries burn what they cannot carry to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. The column continues forward, now stripped of food, medical supplies, and siege equipment, moving through a landscape littered with Roman dead. By afternoon of the second day, the column reaches the killing ground Arminius has prepared near Calchris. The trail narrows to a corridor perhaps 50 yards wide, squeezed between a boggy lowland and a steep forested hill. Roman scouts report that the path ahead is blocked. Behind them, Germanic forces are closing in. Varus has no choice but to advance. The legions begin moving through the corridor, then the trap springs. From the wooden rampart concealed along the hillside, thousands of Germanic warriors unleash a devastating barrage. Spears, arrows, stones, and javelins rain down on the compressed Roman column. Legionaries raise their shields, but the angle of attack is nearly vertical. Men fall by the dozens. The Romans try to charge up the hill, but the slope is too steep and defended. They attempt to form testudo formations, overlapping shields creating protective shells, but the attacks come from too many angles. Units fragment into isolated groups, each fighting for survival. Germanic warriors now descend from the hill in overwhelming numbers, engaging the Romans in close combat. Arminius is among them, commanding his coalition with tactical brilliance. He focuses attacks on Roman officers, collapsing the command structure. Without centurions to maintain order, legionaries fight as individuals rather than as the coordinated machine that makes them effective. The Germanic warriors, fighting for their homeland with fury and tactical advantage, push the Romans back. The battle in the corridor continues for hours. Some Roman units break through and continue west. Others are completely destroyed. The once mighty column has disintegrated into scattered groups, each desperately trying to escape. Varus, wounded and recognizing the catastrophe is complete, makes his final decision. Rather than face capture and the humiliation Rome reserves for failed commanders, he orders his bodyguards to help him commit suicide. Several senior officers follow his example. The 18th Legion's eagle standard bearer, knowing the sacred eagle must never be captured, attempts to bury it. Germanic warriors discover and kill him, seizing the standard, one of Rome's most sacred symbols. The third day is simply slaughter. The surviving Romans, perhaps 5,000 men, are scattered across miles of forest. They're exhausted, starving, demoralized, and leaderless. Small groups attempt to fight their way west. Most are hunted down and killed. Germanic warriors show little mercy. These are the occupiers who've spent years oppressing their people, and vengeance is brutal. Some Romans are taken alive for religious sacrifice to Germanic gods. Others are crucified on trees in mockery of Roman execution methods. By September 11th AD, approximately 72 hours after the first attack, 3 Roman legions have ceased to exist. Of nearly 20,000 soldiers, perhaps 500 reach Roman-controlled territory alive. Most are auxiliary troops who fled early or were allowed to escape. Almost no legionaries survive. The 17th, 18th, and 19th legions are obliterated so completely that their numbers are never used again in Roman military history. 6 eagles, the sacred standards that represent Roman honor, are lost, a humiliation beyond measure. Arminius stands victorious in a forest now carpeted with Roman dead. He's accomplished what seemed impossible, defeating Rome's unstoppable military machine on the battlefield. The ambush has been a masterpiece of intelligence, planning, and execution, and the consequences will reshape the ancient world. When news of the Teutoburg disaster reaches Rome, Emperor Augustus reportedly beats his head against the palace walls, crying out, "Quinctili ver legiones rede! Quinctilis Varus, give me back my legions!" He's right to despair. The loss represents approximately 8% of Rome's entire military strength destroyed in 3 days. It's the worst defeat since Hannibal annihilated Roman armies at Cannae over 2 centuries earlier. But the military losses, devastating as they are, represent only the immediate impact. The strategic consequences prove even more profound. Rome abandons all territory east of the Rhine. The dream of Germania as a Roman province dies in the Teutoburg Forest. Augustus orders defensive positions established along the Rhine-Danube frontier, a border that will define Western Europe for the next 4 centuries. The Roman Empire, which has expanded relentlessly for generations, permanently halts its northern advance. This defensive pivot fundamentally alters European history. The Germanic peoples beyond the Rhine remain independent, maintaining their own cultures, languages, and political structures outside Roman control. When Rome eventually falls 4 centuries later, these Germanic tribes, descended from the same peoples Arminius united, will inherit Western Europe. The linguistic and cultural division between Romance language Southern Europe and Germanic language Northern Europe originates from this moment. If Varus had successfully crossed the Teutoburg Forest, if Rome had consolidated control of Germania up to the Elbe, modern Europe might speak Latin-descended languages from Italy to Poland. For Arminius, victory proves bittersweet. He's hailed as a liberator among Germanic tribes, but his coalition fragments quickly after the battle. Intertribal rivalries resurface. Some Germanic leaders, fearing Arminius has become too powerful, plot against him. In 21 AD, approximately 12 years after his greatest triumph, Arminius is assassinated by members of his own family during tribal power struggles. He's perhaps 37 years old. Rome never forgets. 6 years after Teutoburg, the future Emperor Germanicus leads Roman legions back into Germania on campaigns of revenge. His forces recover 2 of the lost eagle standards and locate the Teutoburg battlefield. According to the historian Tacitus, they find bones scattered across miles of forest, broken weapons, fragments of armor, and human skulls nailed to trees. Germanicus orders proper burial for the remains, but even this ritual cannot erase the defeat. The Teutoburg Forest enters Roman consciousness as a trauma, a permanent reminder that Roman power has limits. Military commanders study it for lessons in overconfidence, intelligence failure, and tactical vulnerability. The defeat shapes Roman strategic thinking for generations. No emperor seriously attempts to conquer Germania again. 2,000 years later, German nationalists rediscover Arminius, reimagining him as Hermann the German, a proto-nationalist hero. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest becomes mythology, symbol, and historical turning point simultaneously. In truth, it's all 3. Our understanding of the Teutoburg disaster comes primarily from Roman historians writing decades after the events. The most detailed account comes from Publius Cornelius Tacitus, specifically his Annals, written around 116 AD. Tacitus drew on earlier sources and military records to reconstruct the campaign. He describes Germanicus's discovery of the battlefield and provides crucial details about Roman strategy and the Germanic ambush tactics. Cassius Dio, writing his Roman history in the early 3rd century, offers another major source. Though he wrote 2 centuries after the battle, Dio accessed imperial archives and provides the only surviving detailed narrative of how the ambush unfolded across 3 days. His account includes the famous story of Augustus's grief and the detail about Varus's suicide. Velleius Paterculus, who served under Tiberius in Germanic campaigns, wrote his Roman history around 30 AD, just 20 years after Teutoburg. His account is briefer but valuable because he personally knew some survivors and witnessed the aftermath. He provides details about Arminius's Roman education and his betrayal of Varus. Archaeological evidence has dramatically enhanced our understanding. In the late 20th century, British military officer and amateur archaeologist Tony Clun discovered the actual battlefield site near Kalkreis, Germany. Excavations since the 1980s have recovered thousands of Roman artifacts. Coins stamped with Varus's name, weapons, armor fragments, human remains showing trauma, and portions of the Germanic rampart from which warriors attacked the trapped column. These discoveries confirm the literary sources and reveal details about how the battle was fought. According to analysis by Peter S. Wells in The Battle That Stopped Rome, published by W. W. Norton, the Teutoburg defeat represented a fundamental clash between Roman imperialism and Germanic determination to remain free. Wells argues that Arminius's victory demonstrated sophisticated Germanic political and military capabilities that Romans consistently underestimated. The battle proves that even ancient superpowers face limits when occupying hostile populations who refuse subjugation. If you found this story of ambush, betrayal, and the limits of empire fascinating, there are countless other moments where single battles redirected the course of history. From Alexander's impossible victories to the siege that broke Constantinople, military history reveals how human decisions in moments of crisis echo across centuries. The Teutoburg Forest stands as testament to a fundamental truth. Underestimating your enemy, Ignoring intelligence warnings and fighting on terrain you don't understand can destroy even the mightiest military force ever assembled. Rome learned that lesson in blood and never forgot it. The question is whether modern powers have learned it too. Thank you for watching.